Hi, and welcome to On This Day. Today we look at the fall of the Berlin Wall, which happened on November 9, 1989. We'll look at why it happened, who it affected, and why it still matters today. To understand this issue, we've got to go all the way back to 1945. After the end of World War II, Germany was divided up between the Allies. Portions of the country were occupied by the Soviet Union, the United States, Great Britain, and eventually France. These different sections were known as Allied occupation zones and were allocated at the Yalta and Potsdam conferences. Although the capital, Berlin, was located in Soviet territory, it was also divided up between the Allies into East and West Berlin. West Berlin, which comprised of French, American, and British occupied zones, was conspicuously capitalist, reflecting the nations that ran it. The Allies pumped money into West Berlin, helping to revise its theatre industry, to set up education systems, and to encourage the growth of industry. The strong capitalist influence in the middle of a Soviet territory, according to Soviet leader Khrushchev, stuck like a bone in the Soviet throat. As the world entered into the Cold War period, the Soviets wanted more and more to remove the capitalists from their territory. In 1948, they launched a blockade to try to starve the Allies out. The Allies combated this by sending supplies from the air in the Berlin Airlift. The failed blockade ended in 1949, but was not without its consequences. In the 9 years following the blockade, 3 million refugees fled from the east side of Germany to the west, fearing further action by the east. On August 12, 1961, 2,400 people fled from east to west, the highest number ever in a day. That night, Khrushchev ordered the border be closed permanently, and over 2 weeks a wall consisting of barbed wire and blocks of concrete was put up. It was then impossible to cross from east to west, apart from at designated checkpoints controlled by East German soldiers. Over time, the wall was replaced with a more sturdy structure that was very difficult to scale. This structure was known as the Antifaschistische Schutzwall in the east and was supposedly to keep Western fascists out, but really aimed to stop people defecting from the east. West Berliners, however, took a different view, referring to the Berlin Wall as the Wall of Shame. The Berlin Wall stood for more than 28 years, during which time many people tried different creative methods of escape, such as hot air ballooning, tunneling, and even just ramming the wall with large vehicles. US President Kennedy, a key Cold War leader, when asked about whether they would take action to take down the wall, said, "A wall is a hell of a lot better than a war." In 1989, as the Communist bloc weakened and the Cold War began to come to an end, the sudden announcement was made at night on November 9 that the borders would be opened. People, while at first shocked, began to celebrate. Many who would become known as wall woodpeckers rushed to the wall and began to chip away at it. Soon enough, all that remained of the wall was rubble. On October 3, 1990, a year after the wall fell, the reunification of Berlin was made final. "Only today," wrote one Berlin citizen on the wall, "is the war really over." The people most affected by the wall were the East Berliners, who suffered very poor living conditions in comparison with their Western neighbours. A large portion of Eastern GDP went to the Soviet Union, who saw their German territory as a spoil of war. When the border was closed, East Berliners were then prevented from sharing in the prosperity of the West. The Berlin Wall, looking back, is often seen as a symbol of the Cold War and the division between communism and capitalism, and its fall symbolized the Cold War era drawing to a close. It is very relevant today because it is within living memory, and people as young as Generation X remember its fall. Nowadays, Berlin is an undivided city, and Germany a united country. Freedom, more than anything, is the legacy of the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Created using Powtoon.